Oh, hi, Internet. This is an episode, a new episode, a brand new episode. Well, maybe if you're watching it later, maybe it's not. This is an episode for sure, that much I can say, of Oh So Curious. Today, we're back to the Three Curious Mind idea, where it's just three of us, just me and my good friends Dan and Catriona. How you doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Hello. How are you feeling? Is everything going well? Has it been a good week? Are we happy to be here? Dan, why don't you tell me first? How you doing?
Oh, it's been a really long day, and it's sort of been like all over the place. I watched the England women's team win Euro 2022, beat Germany in the final at Wembley, and then we've just been getting bombarded with, it seems like, everybody who's 88, and like, three big celebrities passed away, and then a couple of them close to heart for me, because I'm a fan of basketball, I'm a fan of Star Trek. So that was, yeah, a lot to take in.
Death had a busy day today.
Yeah.
How are you doing today, Catriona?
I think I'm better than Dan. It sounds like. Sorry, Dan.
Well, yeah,
It happens. It's life. Yeah.
it's life. Yeah, it is life. This has been a long week for me too. But this. I suppose the toughest part of my week, the most trying part. I went to go see the DC League of Super Pets. I just want to warn everybody who hasn't been to a 4DX movie at this point, don't go. Don't pay the extra dollars or two or however many it is. My gosh. If you haven't been to it, it's like... And I wasn't the only one there. Catriona, you were there.
Yeah,
So
I
feel
was.
free to pipe in and explain how horrifying
Well,
and jarring
okay.
the whole experience is.
First off, I think it was the first few minutes, it was really fun. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have a blast watching this movie with this, because I wasn't expecting to actually like the movie, which I did. I really enjoyed
The
it.
movie was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Super
was
Pets,
really good.
we had fun.
But after a while of being like shaken around nonstop, like just because what's the mean dog's name? Crypto, just because Crypto like would like pat
Lift his head up or
do
something.
this, and you're going like this, like because the whole chair's like shaking. After a while of that, I had to sit just on the stairs off to the side because I got really sick.
Yeah, you
So
will leave the theater completely motion sick. But let's just take you through every element of this. I walk into the theater. I'm expecting
Can
to
I,
be able to recline. Yeah.
I just can we do the rundown before we get into the review of, of the movie? I don't want to get too deep into it.
You want to
Before,
do
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
we could go ahead and do that.
Sure,
Sure.
let's do the rundown.
Oh, right, that's me. Okay.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Today's rundown are quick hits. Is the DCEU cursed? Voice actor reacts. Recast T'Challa? Quiet, Andrew. I can hear you trying to say something. Bullet Train preview. Yeah, what? If you're gonna say something or not, say it. Go ahead.
Nah, great job.
Thank you. That's it.
What's the deal with the okay? Okay. I
And
saw
here
your
we are.
soul leave your eyes for a second there.
Who?
What is
Me?
you?
Me?
Yeah,
Just now?
just now. Let's do the Super Pets review. Hold on a
Okay.
second. Okay. Good movie. Funny movie. A lot of performances. I wouldn't even call them performances. There was a lot of good comedy, good writing in the movie. Good animation. It's not, Pixar. It's not Illumination. This was DC getting into the animated movie game, and they did a good job. Animation was fine. Characters were fun. But, again, if you saw it in 4DX, you got abused, I believe.
Well, like, it was still fun.
It was.
I feel like I laughed a lot more at the movie because of the 4D, despite getting sick and then having to sit out for a while. I came back refreshed. And I think it would have been fun, the 4D, if they just kept it to the action scenes as opposed to every little movement. It was just really odd to have somebody move their eyes or something, like do that, and your whole
Your
body
whole
is just
chair
like,
moves this way,
yeah,
and like, or if somebody falls, you get hit in the back of
punched
the
in the
head.
back. Yeah, that was really
Or
uncomfortable.
and anytime there's a flash of electricity or lightning or something, there's a little light in the corner of the theater that blinks, and like, it just looks like something's going wrong in the theater.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first. I was like, oh, a light went out.
Then
Okay.
and it's like, oh, but it keeps going out, and then you realize,
Yeah.
oh, there's a little correlation, and then there's smoke, and the smoke is rising. It's like, I don't, the seats are shaking. If you didn't know that it was a 4DX movie, you just think that it was an earthquake and that the theater was imploding.
I think the highlight was when we first sat down and we all looked at our seats because we thought they were adjustable seats that you could sit back in.
That was
And there
probably
was
the biggest disappointment.
and there was an option for water or no water, and you could turn it off or on, and we were just messing around with each other's buttons, like,
I
fine,
didn't
no
know what
water
that
for
button
you.
meant
I
either.
well, that you'll learn later on. It
Yeah.
means you're gonna
You're
get
gonna
sprayed
spray it
with
with
water if you
There's
so
an
choose.
there's an option for no. I'm sorry. That's just
And that's the only one you can choose to opt out of.
Yeah, you can't.
Not getting punched in the back, not getting like tossed around or anything.
Yeah.
so
And they
the
group
only
you in
the only
seats-
4D
sections of
experience
four.
of the that I've ever had is like it was some kind of a theme park or something, and it was like have you seen Bean the movie, the Mr. Bean, the first Mr.
No.
Bean movie?
Oh yes, I love that movie. Yeah.
Like when he goes to a theme park and then he's like, oh my god, this thing is not like high enough or whatever the setting, and then he goes and plays around with the
Yeah.
and then like all of a sudden
I
the
do.
seats are chucking people off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I always imagined 4DX would be like, taken to an extreme. And then when I went to one of those, it was kind of like that. Like the whole chair would move, and obviously you'd feel the overall. Like they had stuff that you would feel like you could smell things and all that. But I've only done that a couple of times, and I haven't done that in years.
Here's the thing. It's like every 3 or 4 seconds, there's something else that's going, hey, stop paying attention to the movie. And it's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
trying to pay attention to the movie. It takes you out of it.
Yeah,
every
and I
chance.
was. Yeah.
And then you get these scenes where it's like, no, wait, hold on, this is important. And then there's nothing, and you're like, kind of on edge. It's like, okay, can I pay attention to the
You're
movie?
anticipating.
And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna get a couple details, and then Crypto moves his head a little bit, and you go, ah!
Yeah. I was very concerned for the children in this because I felt like I was gonna go flying out of my chair. Oftentimes I'd have to like sit back up because I was slowly getting knocked out of it.
Yeah, I mean, by
Wait, do
the
you
end,
have
I was
seatbelts?
laughing so hard,
No
but it
seatbelts.
wasn't even the movie that was making
Yeah,
me laugh.
I
I was
know, I
laughing
couldn't
at my
stop.
own situation. I was like, I didn't know that I was gonna happen to me, and it was hard. It was really
Yeah.
hard.
So I'm sorry. So this sounds more like an amusement park ride than a movie theater experience. Is that?
Yeah, and if you're
Kinda
not
was.
expecting it, which none of us were, it can be really unpleasant.
But you know what?
That's insane.
It shows how good of a movie it was because despite all that, I still really enjoyed the movie.
That's
Like,
true. That's
You
true.
know,
No,
because
it was
that experience could have ruined a movie, and if it was just an okay movie, I would not have cared. You know?
yeah. Like if I had seen Lightyear in this, I would have asked for my money back.
Okay,
They
so
really, they should
so-
pay you
so-
to sit in 4DX.
so what you're saying, it's better than 3D, but it's not. Is it better than? Would you say it's a better experience
know
than
what?
watching?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna make a proclamation. Film is a 2-dimensional medium. Keep it that way.
Fair enough. I mean, that's how they did it for like 65 years or so before we started to experiment with all this.
Nothing.
Crazy stuff.
Nobody has ever added another dimension to film. Yeah, I remember Rugrats a long time ago. The
yeah.
Rugrats and Wild Thornberry movie. They had a scratch and sniff card that you could go to Burger King, buy your toy from your meal, and get the scratch and sniff card, and you'd go to the movie and they'd put up a number and you'd scratch it and oh, it smells like bubble gum. The movie is better. No, it was not.
Actually, that was another thing too, because Dan, you said 4D is usually like there's an experience where you'll have smells and stuff. They didn't, I don't think they did that, but I left the theater at one point, came back, and I noticed the theater just smelled weird in general.
Yeah. Oh, and then the swelling of the air conditioning when like somebody's flying and it's like
Oh,
it's just cold. It's just too cold in here. It was
Okay,
there are so
so
many weird things.
I can imagine that wouldn't be fun, especially if you were chugging on like a extra large soda or something. And you're just like, if I can hold it long enough, I can get to the movie, but then you get the wisp of air and you're like, nope, gotta go now. Like,
Dan, I
don't
really
care.
went through something this week.
Uh, okay, so all of that aside, what did
Yeah,
you guys, I mean, you said you liked the movie, but I guess
I
what I'm
did.
trying to ask is, what was good? Give me like a quick review of like what was this, because I haven't seen it yet. And what I'm
Yeah, sure.
hearing is a lot better than what some people expected it to be. So it's
For
surprising
sure.
people. So tell me.
For sure. You know, it's this is a property that's existed for a while. It's canon in certain universes of the DC universe. Superman had a dog from his home planet named Krypto after Krypton, and they in some universes they live together or are reconnected when he travels out into another universe and brings him back. And so it's a dog with all of Superman's superpowers who does his own missions, usually with other super animals. And so in this line of narrative, Batman has a dog, Wonder Woman has a pig. These are all things that they establish in this movie, which could act as kind of a bouncing off point for a series or a lot of other movies. But this was Super Dog, and then Lex Luthor's experiment leading to a bunch of other animals getting superpowers. You add an all-star cast, a lot of really good comedy writers, some good casting. It was a fun ride. It was a fun ride, and they pull a couple comedy techniques that you wouldn't expect that make it fun for adults, and kids are gonna enjoy it too.
I
It was a good time.
Yeah, and I found that I enjoyed it so much more than any superhero movie that I've seen in the past year
Absolutely.
because it didn't have the pressure of impressing any current fans.
Yeah.
So the
I
humor, I was laughing so hard genuinely
That's
because
a
it
great
just was
point.
so laid back.
You know, that's the thing is, and I've been saying that maybe we'll talk about this more when we talk about DC, but I've always thought that if Marvel is going to take itself that seriously, like, you know, the original Batman should go back to being a little more
Like
lighthearted.
campy.
Yeah, like we don't need two Marvels. It would be pretty cool to have one superhero property lean into being like hey, they're superheroes. Nobody's taking this that seriously. I would enjoy the low pressure, low stakes, you know, good
Well,
old
that's
fashioned superhero stuff.
That's weird that you say that though, because I feel like Marvel's going in the direction of making their stuff. Everything is kind of funny now, a little too much sometimes.
Well,
And
but the stakes are always super high, right?
this,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, so okay, so what you're sort of maybe referencing is this movie felt more like the Lego Batman movie did, which they got free
Yeah.
reign to do whatever they wanted as long as it was a fun film. And that was also one of those movies where I'm pretty sure people went in and they were like, I don't know what to expect, but it was like a fantastic movie. And I think you're saying, from the looks of it, that's kind of what this movie was. It's not trying to take itself seriously. It's just you're just having a good
Yeah.
time.
And, you know, Marvel has a tendency to take itself seriously as a brand also, you know, like we can look
yeah,
at how they release things and how they, you know, how they treat casting and the messages of their movies. If one of these brands could just be like, hey, they're superheroes, don't read too much into it. It's a good guy and a bad guy and we had some fun with a fight. And maybe you can learn something about it from it, but you know,
right.
it doesn't need to be social commentary or these big lofty ideas or heavy sci-fi that's really, you know, scientifically on point and cutting edge. Like, just entertain.
Yeah. Oh,
Dan, we
Dan,
lost you.
yeah.
I keep doing this to myself. Okay, what I was gonna say is, what you're saying, okay, I'm repeating myself now. What you're saying is this is a movie that you would recommend people go watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
just not in 4D.
I mean, but despite that, even with the 4D, as hard as that was, I still enjoyed the movie. So
That's
that
for
tells
sure.
you, for me at least, how good I thought it was. So
Yeah, despite the theater doing everything it could to, ruin your experience, the
yeah, to
movie.
make me want to throw
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I thought
Okay.
it was a
Great.
miracle that the chairs in the ceiling didn't have teeth that started crunching on us. That's how I felt.
Maybe if
Anyway,
you went to watch Jurassic World Dominion, you would have
Oh,
had that contraption
that movie made me
installed.
sick without 4D. That was just
Okay. All right. Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna probably check it out, maybe, but it looks like it's a good time at the theater. So, you guys have convinced me, let's say, to watch it.
well, good.
Or hopefully, if you're watching and you're interested, go see it. There's not a lot out there right now. I mean, there's not a ton of new movies set to come out in the month of August either. So I suppose of what's left still in the theaters that's already been out for a while, if you've seen everything else, this isn't a bad movie to go out and check out. So
it's a great movie to go check out.
This is if you're just looking to have fun, everybody makes this a fun movie. That's for
Yeah.
sure. If you are watching this right now, be sure to like and subscribe. Be our friend. Follow us. We're on all the things. We're on the Facebook thing, the Instagram thing, Spotify, anywhere you get a podcast. We're on YouTube and Twitch right now. So if you're here, there's a little button you can press, and you can get updated on all of our clips and every time we go live, and be part of our movie fan community, which you should do.
yeah.
And yeah. In the meantime, let's take a look at that comment of the week.
Okay, we got two of them this week. So here's the
Two
first one.
comments. You want me to go for it?
Yeah. Yes.
I
Sorry.
think you
Awkward si-
need to read this.
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. Oh, this is that one.
Yes. I've been
Comment
waiting
of
for
the
this.
week. Nina Buena. The Guy in Blue. Please watch Lolita and Amadeus, both films from the POV of the villain of the protagonist, to help you expand your film palette and familiarize yourself with other film styles. Also, FYI, Elvis slept and cried over his mother's dress. That really did happen. Also, I suggest you work on your presentation because you come across as unlikable, pretentious, extremely obnoxious, and condescending. Was she talking about Roland?
No.
I just want to clarify something. I know I'm the
No.
guy in blue right now, but this is from, if you go back and watch our Elvis review, the guy in blue was Andrew. I did go back and watch it just
Oh,
to
that
be sure.
was
I'm like,
about
who is he
me.
talking about? Or she
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah, I think it was
Really?
Andrew. She's referring to you.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know the clip you're talking about, and I want to make something very clear. That's a gray shirt. So, number two, I'd like to take a poll. Am I condescending or unlikable?
I think we should leave it up to the viewers, not the people on the
Absolutely.
team.
If you
And
think I'm
Yeah.
condescending or unlikable, you just leave a little comment down there, and we'll see. We'll see how many likes that comment gets, or how many comments we get. But I'll tell you this much: I'm a big fan of me.
Nana Banana or whatever your
Nana
name
Banana,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say on behalf of the channel, we look forward to hearing more of your YouTube comments, so keep it up.
Not just you, anybody who's got anything to say. We are always interested in your commentary, your perspective, because at the end of the day, we're just people who are watching movies, and so are you. So join the conversation, be part of it. Sometimes you'll even get on the show yourself. Be the comment of the week. What's the second comment of the week?
Before we go to it, I just want to. Sorry, I did the
Yeah.
work, so I'm gonna put it up on screen.
Okay,
So this is the blue shirt you are wearing. You're saying that's a gray shirt.
that's
I'll
great.
believe you. But
It's blue.
There's a blue sky
There's.
for reference if you've forgotten what blue looks like.
Do you think that's
That's
throwing your
pale.
eyes off? Is like an optical illusion? That's probably what it is.
You would think we got a dress situation here?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
it's blue.
Is it like, okay, so if you put your hand over the sky part of the image, I think you can tell it's more gray.
Mm,
I think it's pretty clearly gray. You can reference the shirt I'm wearing now, which is also, it's a lighter shade of gray. It's gray. as I was saying, I'm glad we drew a visceral response. Our content is getting engagement. I'm glad that you felt that was something you needed to share with us. We're engaging with it. Clearly, we value that as well. And Dan, thanks for taking the time to take us back to the moment and dispute the facts. It's a gray shirt. We're thorough.
I still think it's blue. Okay, go ahead.
You're wrong. But this let's take a look at that second comment of the week. Do you want to take this one?
You who? There's
You who? You.
Oh, me? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Dan, would you like to do it?
No, yeah, go ahead. I'm
All right. Xavier Adams, or possibly Javier. I knew somebody who spelled it that way.
By the way,
In the
that's not a
previous-
spelling mistake. I thought he like switched the order of the I and the we, but that's how it is on YouTube, so that's how it is here.
Oh,
We're taking your word for it,
Okay.
Saver.
I. In the previous phases, character development led to an. Am I saying this right? In the previous phases, character development led to an epic battle of some sort. All the new don't seem to have anything connecting them to a new reason or epic battle. Maybe Kang, whichever
Think
will
it's
be
Kang.
okay. Will be the big bad guy in this new effort. But yeah, we don't know enough about any of the new folks, future included, and how they interact to get excited about a storyline that will lead to a new big war. I don't know why that was so hard for me to read.
I think you did fine. Honestly, that's true. That's a really good point. And yeah, there's kind of this aimless thing happening with the MCU where like everybody was saying endgame. Endgame will be the end game, and that'll be the end. And then maybe they'll start over. Maybe we'll get a new Spider-Man, or maybe we'll get a new, Iron Man. There were a million opportunities to like stop and start over. And they said, we got a good thing going here, and they're just milking it as much as it can go.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we had a whole segment about this the other week, which is that's the video which this comment is coming from. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that it seems like they're just placing pieces on a chessboard, but nobody really knows where this is ultimately. I mean, I guess now we know because they announced Secret Wars and the Kang Dynasty, the next two Avengers movies. But
Yeah.
it does feel like, even with that being said, like for example, in the Phase 1, and when we got to the first Avengers movie, they showed Thanos, and you kind of knew where things were headed. Whereas right now, it just feels like a lot of these properties or TV shows or movies, they're not trying to really connect as much as those old movies were used to. So I think that's kind of like disorienting a little bit, especially if you are a newer fan to the MCU. You're like, how does Moon Knight connect to Miss Marvel, and what does Doctor Strange have to do with Thor? It's sort of
But
hard
also-
to keep track of that.
But also, do they need to? Like I know Spider-Man is an Avenger, but they've said they're going to keep him a street level superhero. And it's like, that's kind of what Spider-Man was. It was, hey, something's wrong in my city. I'm going to take care of it because I'm in the locale. I can get there. And this is my community. Now I'm going to take care of it. And that was a nice thing. Now everybody's responsible for saving the entire planet. And it's like...
Well, here's the thing, though. That's kind of you run into these problems when you have this interconnected, universe where everybody sort of can cross paths, because you can just imagine this in the DC universe, which we will talk about that at some point today too, where Batman is a very street level, fighting for Gotham City kind of a character, right? Like that's what he does. Whereas
Yeah.
Superman is there for fighting planetary and alien threats on a world level.
Which
But
makes
if you-
sense
Yeah.
because he is from another planet. He's the right authority for that kind of thing. He has the capacity to get into outer space and fly around the Earth. Batman lives in Gotham City. That's what he does.
Well, he's just a rich guy.
Yeah,
He
that too.
doesn't really have any powers.
That's one of his superpowers. He's rich, or his only superpower. But the point I was trying to make was ultimately when you have a world where both of those characters exist simultaneously and they have to interact, it's such a mismatch. You either like bump the guy on the lower end of the totem pole and say, okay, now they're equals, or you bring the other people down to that level. And I think that's the problem that the MCU sort of runs into, where if Spider-Man movies like they used to existed on their own, Spider-Man was the shit like in his movies, whereas now it feels
Yeah.
like he is like what do they call him,
He's
the
just a kid.
Iron Lad or something
Ooh.
to Tony Stark. He's like Iron Man Jr. or whatever. Like he
Yeah.
kind of feels like he's sidelined in his own movies at times, and
Yeah.
that's a problem you wouldn't
Yeah.
have if it was just Spider-Man.
Right.
It's a states' rights federal government kind of thing. I think we need to see more local superheroes, and less overarching, everybody's controlling everything kind of stuff. Also, like you said, they're all put at the same level when they're Avengers, and they used to have races between the Flash and Superman. That's DC, but like you would be. You would understand there's one who's better than the other. They're not all equally matched, and that gets boring when everybody's equally matched. I think that's what was exciting about Thanos. They had to team up because he was so powerful.
I still think the best.
Sorry,
Go
go ahead, Catriona. Yeah.
You go.
I was just gonna mention the quick quote from the first Incredibles movie. What's the name of the villain from that movie? He has this
Syndrome.
line in there. What was it?
Syndrome, right?
Syndrome. Yeah. He basically has this. He says he's like giving up his he's laying out his plan.
When everybody's super.
His evil plan. He's like, when everybody's super, and he's walking away, nobody will be, like under his breath.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, the genius of that movie was that one line of dialogue. If you're gonna walk away with one thing, I'm like, he is the most genius antagonist of any superhero movie I've ever seen.
Well, he basically predicted what's going on with the MCU.
Yeah, it's like you can go and on any street corner, you're gonna run into some super powered character who can do some weird thing. In fact, they're not almost leaning into it now. But if you've seen the She-Hulk trailer, they're sort of leaning into this idea of like everybody's super, or there's a ton of super people out there, which in turn makes each one feel less special. Like if people are having problems with things like what they've done with the Hulk, it's like the Hulk is all of a sudden this tamed human who just looks green and big, like rather than the Hulk, like what you remember from the first Avengers movie.
And if we start to see the the X-Men, the mutants, and that kind of stuff, that also establishes this sort of commonality of just people who happen to be born with a mutation. And now everybody's got something, and you have to wonder what it's like to be a regular person in the MCU, just being like, yeah, I'm still driving a bus, and still, I'm not super bus man. I don't know. Maybe he's got a really good internal metronome or something, but there's nothing left.
I just don't understand why they couldn't expand more on Thor and the Guardians together. Like if that had been a TV series of them just not doing huge global catastrophe things or universally catastrophe things, but just things, just episodic little adventures together, like they kind of made us think was going to happen. Why couldn't they have just stuck with that? That would have been such a more interesting show than any of the other Marvel shows that they have right now. And they really could have kept up with that. That could have led into maybe a better Thor movie coming.
They're all sort of the same movie because they have to invent a new bad guy. They have to team up. They have to defeat him, and then you're right back to the next one.
Yeah.
We could, as long as we have all of these new people popping up, it'd be cool to see, a story that doesn't follow the same superhero movie arc. It was just, hey, we're on the ship, we got to do something.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it doesn't have to. That's where you could not take it so seriously and make it funnier. You don't have to do that in the movies. You don't have you don't have the pressure of making it epic and funny at the same time. Do that for the TV show and then make the movies more epic or something. God, they should have just hired me. That's
clearly, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think the problem the MCU seems to have is like they're always looking like 2 steps ahead, and they've gotten to the habit of basically, it's sort of like I don't know what you call it. They have a farsightedness issue or near. Yeah, they're probably farsighted or nearsighted. I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is they're so focused on what's coming. Huh?
They need glasses.
Yeah, whatever. Basically, they're always too focused on what's 2 years ahead of them, that
Mm-hmm.
they just don't see maybe some of the gold that is right in front of them. Like maybe like you said,
Yeah.
like I would have loved to see the next Thor movie, instead of being Love and Thunder, let's do it as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Let's just do a quick spin-off. Like you've got gold there you can mine. And then that kind of ties into their overall narrative too now. Like I was just looking at like how long phases 1, 2, and 3 took, the whole Infinity Saga. It took like 13 years almost, it feels like. It was like 10, 12, something like that. It started in 2008, it ended in 2018 or 19.
Wow.
So 10 odd years. Whereas if you look at phase 4, which we're currently in, started in what, 2021, I think, with WandaVision, all the way to the end of phase 6, which is the whole thing is being titled as the Multiverse Saga, it's going to be like 2025. So in half as much time, they're going to try to cover just as much ground as they did in 10 years prior. I mean, granted, they have Disney Plus shows now, excuse me, but it still feels, I think there's people are starting to get to a point where it's overload, because you're getting
Yeah.
bombarded with, instead of 4 movies a year, 3 movies a year, you're getting 4 movies a year as well as 4 or 5 shows a year. Not to mention like Comic-Con and all the marketing you get, like D23. It's I think starting to become too much, and not
Yeah,
and
well,
it's
I think
diluting the quality of
if
the
they're
content
trying
too.
to if they're trying to
Yeah.
get that to happen that fast, I think they might know that the jig is up and that they have to rush this if they want to tell the entire story. That's assuming they have the end in
It's
mind.
possible. Like
There's no end.
like the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness became the first ever comic book like or superhero movie ever that got past $900 million but did not cross $1 billion. It like crashed out at like 950 some change. So it's like
Interesting.
less than 50 million away from hitting the coveted $1 billion number. But no, it's no movie really has ever done that, at least in the comic book genre, or like any genre period. Like usually movies that get that far across the threshold, which is, I mean, it's still a successful movie. Any
Yeah,
movie that makes that much money is
but
successful. But
we're seeing that trend down, right?
Hmm.
yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder sort of dropped off after the first couple of weeks, and it's right now. I mean, if you look at its numbers, well, let's see. I had them pulled up. Let me just I'm just gonna refresh the page real quick. Let's see. It's sitting at 662 million.
Okay.
It's been in release for how many weeks now? Let's see. July 8th it came out. So about 3 weeks, it's made that much money. Eh, And at this point, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look like this is going to make as much money as Thor Ragnarok did, or it's going to
Mm.
struggle to get that far, which
Yeah.
isn't a good sign. I mean, that should be a worrying sign if I were Kevin Feige and company.
Well, it
So,
can't. It just wasn't as good as Thor Ragnarok because it was
yeah.
like a redo, a rehash of that because we all loved that, something new. And then they're like, oh, that was perfect. Let's just redo it.
Yeah.
You can't do that and then
Well,
expect
I
everybody
agree.
to love it.
I mean, they've been even cheesier and even more comical and even more over the top. And I think,
Mhm.
while I do think, okay, so here's the thing. I personally really liked Thor: Love and Thunder for a lot of what it had. However, like it's one of those movies that leaves a bad aftertaste in your mouth, because you like it in the moment, but then you walk away and you start thinking about what you just watched, and you're like,
yeah.
wow, there were some big gaps in this thing. And it's not
Mhm.
like the movie needed a whole lot to happen for it to be so much better than it was. I think, and when you look at how much, I think we have heard that Lena Headey was paid like $7 million to film a bunch of scenes, and then they cut her entire character and all of her scenes out. Like that's a lot of money to spend on an actor to do a few scenes. I think she was supposed to. It's not confirmed. She might have been playing Gore's wife. So
Oh, well, that
Wow.
would have been interesting to
Well,
see.
right, I'm like,
apparently,
that's one of
apparently
those
she was
shortcomings
also
of the movie.
somewhere buried
Yeah.
in the DC League of Super Pets. So, and I still can't find her. I don't remember who she was there. We could
Oh,
talk
right.
about Marvel forever, honestly, but let's move on a little bit because we got a lot more of the show to get to. You mentioned that we had some legends leave us this week, and I think before we do a drawn out tribute to each one, which we will do, let's just take a moment to recognize some great people.
Yeah, absolutely. We put together a nice tribute here. Let's take a look.
News broke this week that Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton has been tapped by Marvel to direct Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. The fifth Avengers film is one of two that will close out Marvel's Phase 6 set of movies. Kevin Feige told The Hollywood Reporter this week that the upcoming Fantastic Four movie won't be an origin story. Feige would like to avoid retreading the familiar origin of Marvel's first family, saying, quote, "How do we take that and bring something that they've never seen before?" Rockstar announced that GTA 6 will feature the franchise's first female playable character, and the studio will add new cities over time after initially launching with a city based on Miami. Alan Horn is returning to Warner Bros. Discovery after being away from the company for 9 years, this time in a consultant role to help David Zaslav and his new regime navigate the film business. The former Disney chief creative officer oversaw the Harry Potter franchise and the Dark Knight trilogy in his previous stint as a president and chief operating officer of Warner Bros. Jason Momoa sent DC fandom into a state of euphoria on Thursday when he posted pictures of himself and Ben Affleck on the Warner Bros. Backlot, announcing that Affleck will be returning as Bruce Wayne in the upcoming Aquaman and the Last Kingdom. Let us know how you feel about this frenzy in the comments below. It was revealed on Friday that MGM has now lost the film rights to the Tomb Raider franchise, with Alicia Vikander no longer attached to the property as Lara Croft. One source described the situation to The Hollywood Reporter as, quote, "a feeding frenzy." Are you a Tomb Raider fan? Are you planning on taking over the franchise? Let us know in the comments below. Those are the quick hits for this week, and remember to join us for live episodes of Oh So Curious every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk movies, TV, streaming, music, and existential philosophies of life. So join us for the fun, because we look forward to having you be a part of our movie and TV series fan community. Take care now.
Okay, so we sort of tipped our hand here a little bit, but this is our discussion about DC, which has struggled to keep up with Marvel, which has really taken over the superhero industry, if you want to call it that. I think in the last 4 years, even The Boys has been more influential than anything coming out of DC. Is it a failing brand? Did they hit the apex of success with the Dark Knight trilogy? You know, is it just, are we never going to measure back up to that? What is the deal with DC? Do they have a chance to redirect and show us that there's still value in DC superheroes? Dan, I'm going to throw this to you because you know a lot more about this than I do, for sure.
Yeah, I think it starts with they panicked at one point. So I'll just do a very quick run. Let's go down memory lane. So
Please.
We cut back to 2013, right? They have just come off in 2012. The Dark Knight trilogy finished with The Dark Knight Rises. So now they're launching Superman again, rebooting him with Man of Steel. And so Henry Cavill is cast in the role. We see him with Man of Steel, and that movie sort of underperforms at the box office.
Right.
Cool. Fine. It's not like it lost money. It made money a lot less than what they thought it would. Then they have Batman versus Superman. That underperformed because they wanted that to make like $1.5 billion, $2 billion, because they were like, it's the two biggest superheroes of all time. It made like 800 some change. Cool. Then they panicked because then they were like, okay, the Suicide Squad movie we were making, let that go out, but we're gonna totally redo the Justice League movie that's filming right now. And then they just, after it did all of that, and we have the whole Zack Snyder leaving the movie and all of that situation with the Snyderverse, that's where all that began. I think they had momentum up until that point because where this started, even though the movies weren't necessarily each performing to the level that they wanted them to. If you consider like where Marvel began, the first 3 or 4 Marvel movies, or even 4 or 5 Marvel movies, I think it's until I was looking this up the other day. So until you get to the first Avengers movie, none of the Phase 1 movies in Marvel, whether it was the first Iron Man, the second Iron Man, the first Thor movie, or Captain America, the first Avenger, none of those movies, even the Incredible Hulk, made over 500 million. I think maybe one of them might have, maybe Iron Man 2. But even then, it was nowhere close to $1 billion. It wasn't until the first Avengers movie that Marvel like began to make $1 billion at the box office with these. In fact, The Dark Knight was the very first superhero movie to make $1 billion, and then The Avengers was the second, and then The Dark Knight Rises was the third ever to make $1 billion. So I think they panicked a bit too early, and then from there they lost their momentum because they were like, okay, now we gotta take a hard right or a hard left, depending on which direction you want to go in. I guess it's a matter of perspective. And then all of a sudden we had this like whatever overarching plan or vision they had, because at one point they threw out this like slate of projects like Marvel does every year, like on a timeline.
Well, that's really the
Never
thing,
followed through
is
on it.
they've been incredibly reactive
Yeah.
in their strategy, and they haven't defined themselves as something unique. And I remember in the 90s, in the 2000s, you know, everybody knew what the Justice League was.
Right.
There was the TV show, there was the animation, there was just the comic books. People knew, like, yeah, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, they all team up in the Flash. They all do stuff together. They work at a team. They have the Hall of Justice. And I don't think anybody, except for comic book nerds and fanatics, knew that the Avengers were a thing. In fact, back then, I think the perception was that Avengers was a reaction to the Justice League, which was successful and people knew about it. There's been this total inversion where Marvel has gone way to the forefront, and DC is just there saying like, well, let's see if we can match that. And even the way you were talking about it earlier is that they're going to open up DC studios. They're going to find somebody like Kevin Feige to do it. Like, their strategy seems to be imitate. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of left with this Coke versus Pepsi thing where it's like, well, they're both cola. They don't taste too different, but there's an opportunity here to be a Dr. Pepper, to be a Sprite, a Sierra Mist, to be something unique. And they're denying that, it seems.
So coming from somebody who was obsessed with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then they advertised Man of Steel. They kept saying, oh, from the producer, or like they said Christopher Nolan was producing it or something, and they kept pushing it as if it was going to be like the Dark Knight, which for someone like me, I would have liked that, but not necessarily means that it was a good way to go about it, but they advertised it like that. And then I saw it and I was like, wow, that was really boring. That's just me personally. I'm not saying it was. I just felt bored as hell watching that movie. And because for me personally, I don't think Superman's a very interesting character. I think Henry Cavill's a great actor. I don't think
they didn't make him terribly interesting.
No.
But you know what I miss personally about Superman is that there was a guy who what was redeeming about him is that he was a good guy. He was all around good. It was his intention to do good, and he had a dedication to morals and to like doing the right thing, and that was what defined him, and you could look up to him and he could be a hero. The way that they've portrayed him, he's just kind of this outsider alien guy who is quiet. He's very quiet. Every still from Superman is him with his mouth closed, just kind of looking off it's so internal. It's so
and it's weird because Henry I was just going to say, because Henry Cavill is he's a great actor and he's very charismatic as a person, and I think he's capable of doing something with the role. Go ahead.
So I'm going to defend the Man of Steel, because I think legitimately Man of Steel is still to this day one of the best things DC side or Warner Brothers has put out in terms of DC projects. Because to me, like when you're doing a Superman, here's the thing: they did Superman Returns, right? And then That movie did even worse than Man of Steel. And that, if you want to talk about a boring Superman, as much as I love Brandon Routh, that was a boring Superman because he was way too contemplative. And I mean, I see where they were going with it, but it didn't work. Then what Man of Steel was, it was like a reinvention. Now, you mentioned Christopher Nolan. He actually helped to write the script, and David Goyer was the one who primarily wrote the script. And David Goyer pitched his idea to Christopher Nolan, and then Nolan brought it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers said, "Okay, great, let's do it. Chris, do you want to direct?" And he was like, "Not really, but like I'll help you guys with the story and all that stuff." And then they brought in Zack Snyder. But I thought from a standpoint of like a first contact, like, you know, with basically he's an alien, right? Clark Kent, or what's his name, Kal-El, is an alien. So how would humanity react? I think that movie was grounded in a sense of reality that a lot of people did not see coming. So I think it was an expectation versus reality situation.
That's
I don't think that was the wrong move
Yeah.
either.
Right.
Because the Dark Knight trilogy proved, like, if you can make this believable, then it's going to be very successful. And I think that's actually the cue that Marvel took, trying to add more realism to their characters and ground everything kind of in our reality a little bit more. But
for like the first 5 years.
Yeah, but we're kind of...
And then Iron Man got like nanotech, and we're like, oh,
yeah,
whatever.
But we're kind of in this hall of mirrors now, where like we get something original with the Dark Knight. Marvel says, "Oh, that's good. Let's reflect that." And then DC goes, "Oh, hold on, that was our idea."
Although I will say the Dark Knight, there's nothing that you can really compare with Marvel. Maybe the Winter Soldier is the only thing that I would put next to the Dark Knight in terms of tone. But Marvel always was like a more lighter tone. I mean, the first Iron Man movie, which came out the same year as the Dark Knight, was way more grounded. But I see your point. Yeah.
I think well, here's the thing. Nolan not coming back to direct other superhero movies should be an indication to the people at DC that, like, oh, we can change course, we can do something different, because Marvel has run away with that. And again, we don't need two Marvels competing with each other.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to that end, you know, when they changed, I mean, okay, so they've done things like Shazam, which is a very lighthearted, very Marvel-esque kind of a movie. I mean, and then they did Aquaman, you know, which the longer the movie went on for, the more it was colorful. But here's the thing, they could do that and do that well, because Marvel is, I would argue, that as long as you make a good movie, it doesn't matter how saturated the colors are. It doesn't matter how good or bad the cinematography is.
I like the color.
Yeah, people will forgive a lot of those, you know, I would say vanity elements like of mise-en-scène. As long as you're telling a good story with characters you can get behind, I think a lot of those other elements can be whatever they need to be. You know, that's up to the filmmaker. That's kind of like saying, you give the same script to Christopher Nolan, you give it to Steven Spielberg, then you give it to Jordan Peele. You're going to get three vastly different looking movies, but as long as they have the same set of dialogue and same script behind them, you know, I think there's a certain potential that they will all have, like a certain floor. And then what the ceiling is will vary, you know?
You know, it's actually interesting you bring up Jordan Peele, because actually after watching Nope, I'd like him to step away from horror. I think he'd be good at a superhero movie. I think, like, the way that he shot that, I was like, this is real enough, it's surreal enough, and you know, he's got years of experience in comedy as well.
Yeah, he has a good level. Yeah.
Maybe that's where I'd like to see him, because he wants to work in that supernatural space. I bet he'd be good.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. Yeah.
I think for me personally, with the whole DCEU thing, is just there's just no getting better than the Dark Knight trilogy for me personally. So it was
if you're going in that direction, no. And that's why I keep saying, like, go a different direction, but try something new.
I see that, but then I mean, you know, if you were an executive at Warner Brothers, you can't. I mean, you know what? I think that's a good criticism to make, but then what do you follow that up with? I mean, so if they can't do the Dark Knight, I mean, that doesn't mean they can't do anything Dark Knight as, like, for example, the Batman. I think a lot of people compared it on the show to the Dark Knight. Yeah. We were like, it's thematically has a lot of similarities, but the Batman made $800 million was a big critical smash. I mean, I think, and the Joker, you could say the one with Joaquin Phoenix was even darker than the Dark Knight in terms of like the themes it dealt with. So I think DC
Well,
can do that. It's
no,
just
I'm
sorry, go
glad
ahead.
you brought up the Joker, because the Joker was them trying something new.
Yeah.
You know, it was let's do a time jump, let's recast this character, let's tell an interesting backstory here. And it's not necessarily, it's a stylized version of the 1980s or late 70s. And we I don't know, it had commentary in it, but it wasn't.
It's when they don't have the pressure of trying to compete with Marvel with the whole cinematic universe or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're just trying to just do like a standalone thing, that I think is when their stuff is the best.
And I
Maybe
think
that's a way that they
that's-
differentiate themselves.
and I think
just
right now that's
standalones.
been their only source of success in the what I would call the post Zack Snyder era, when
Yeah.
the Justice League was like, I think, the last project he was involved with. Obviously, he came back into Zack Snyder's Justice League to finally finish his vision of the movie, which I actually liked a lot better than the theatrical version. That being
That's good to
sack
know.
Haven't
everything
seen
that they've done, huh?
I haven't seen either. I'll get
Oh.
to them. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you
You
off.
have the background. Okay, that's so you haven't seen the movie, but okay. Anyway, whatever.
I just
point I
know
was
all
trying-
about it, okay?
Okay, the point I was trying to make is, since Zack Snyder's like last project, which was that Justice League movie, regardless of whether you look at the theatrical version or the version that he then came back and finished himself, rather than Joss Whedon doing the theatrical, everything since, it seems like they had some sort of cohesive vision up until that point, because even Suicide Squad with Margot Robbie and Will Smith connected to like what the events of what happened in Batman versus Superman, with the death of Superman. But then since then they've sort of like scattered, and they don't have that leadership, and they've been trying to like chug along with this shared cinematic universe, and without that cohesive vision that a Kevin Feige like person, and at Marvel it's not just Kevin Feige anymore. He has Louis D'Esposito, he has a couple of other like people in he's got this whole writers room at this point that he works with, so they treat it like it's like this one big TV show. However, DC hasn't had anything like that. So I think when they have success is when they just say, okay, director XYZ, be it Matt Reeves or be it Todd Phillips, do your thing, man. Here's the property, and you got full creative brain. Doesn't have to connect to anything. Those movies come out great, because Warner Brothers has always been known as the director's studio, and they know how to give the directors, like, when they do give them free reign, like, and they do a good job. But without that overarching, somebody to manage the shared element of their properties, like what the DCEU is in particular, I think it feels scattered. Like, we've been talking about that with Marvel, but I think DC's problem has been worse, because at least at Marvel they do have a plan. It may not seem like it connects now, but eventually it will. But DC, they actually don't have a plan, and they don't have any real plans, it seems like, to connect it, whether it's Ben Affleck's Batman
You know what?
or Michael Keaton's
need,
Batman.
I don't need to see them all together. I don't.
Well, the thing about that too is that the people that they have cast together, they don't really seem to have great chemistry together either. So they can't really bounce off of each other. They can't really improvise any dialogue or anything. It's just very stiff. Gal Gadot, I'm sorry, but she's not the best.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more she comes across stiff because she's not as good an actress. I think Ben Affleck and like Jason Momoa, like those guys I thought they were good. I mean, the theatrical version of Justice League wasn't good, because they went for reshoots, and Ben Affleck was not happy with that. You could tell he was struggling in his personal life with alcoholism at the time, really, really bad. So you could tell if you look at the shots from the original cinematography that was done with Zack Snyder, he looked in much better shape, whereas when he came back and did reshoots, you could tell in parts of and within a same scenes,
That's
they would
a hell of
be
a
cutting together
continuity error.
reshoots. And he would look infinitely like, you could tell his face was swelled up, his hair style was a little different. They couldn't quite match it perfectly. He did not look nearly like in the best shape that he was for the original, photography.
And that's not the only thing standing in the way of like the success of these movies. There's been a lot of little things happening outside of the DC universe in this reality, if you can believe it, that are causing things to be a little tough.
Yeah, are you referring to a certain fastest man alive, or the man who plays the fastest man alive?
I may be.
Maybe, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One Ezra Miller has caused a bit of controversy lately, and we don't have to get too deep into.
I think you're a bit is underselling it. Let's just say
Oh,
that.
just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit.
No, I mean it's
Yeah.
but I see it's not fun. I mean it's okay, it's hard enough as it is for them to be riding the ship given how much they've messed up or not done it right the last few years, that the last thing they need, especially at a time when you have new leadership taking over the company with David Zaslav and Discovery,
Exactly.
that Ezra Miller's going around throwing chairs, getting restraining orders pulled up against him, and having a hard time. The feds could not locate him to serve him court papers, and he was like
He is the
sending out.
fastest man alive.
Yeah, and he was bragging about it on social media, and then he canceled his social media accounts because somebody might have gone to him and told him, you should not be doing this. You should be there to get the paper served to you, and B, if you're not, you should not be publicizing that fact on Instagram, because eventually, when all this catches up to you, they can use that against you in court, which obviously, they probably will, because he still did it. The internet, if you put it on the internet, it's there forever, even if you delete your Instagram account. So I don't know. I mean, that doesn't help. Like, because now how are they going to market the Flash movie? Like, the main character, the main actor who's the lead of the film is marred in so much controversy. Even a year from now, I don't know how much of this is going to have died down.
Isn't it a little bit ironic that DC, all their movies are kind of known for being a little darker, and like we have so many dark issues with so many of their actors?
I wouldn't mind. You know what? I like Shazam. When I saw it, I thought it was a positive kind of thing. I like that it was lighthearted. I like that he, at the end of it, spoiler, he brings a headless, they shoot neck down. He brings Batman and Superman to his high school lunch table, and it's
just Superman. There's no Batman.
It's just Superman.
Just
it's been a while.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't mind a wholesome DC branding, or like, if I wouldn't mind campy. I would not. I've been saying this for years. If they could bring back the Adam West style Batman just for a few movies, I'd be so into that.
Well, you know what I've heard. So apparently, Michael Keaton's coming back in that Flash movie, right? He's playing his Tim Burton verse Batman, and apparently some of his lines are a little like over the top and directly referencing his the original Tim Burton movies. Okay, so the last point I wanted to make was basically Alan Horn this week. It was announced that he's officially signing on to Warner Brothers as a consultant working in conjunction with David Zaslav. So he's directly reporting to David Zaslav. Now, that's something that I think is big, because Alan Horn used to be at Warner Brothers. He retired in 2013. And that's the year Man of Steel came out. And then everything we just talked, all the stuff that we talked about has happened since 2013. So now he's back, and he's coming back after he retired a second time, after having left and retiring the first time. He went and joined Disney and helped to set the MCU on the path that it's on now, and basically it's almost like mentored Kevin Feige. And then he retired when Bob Iger retired, and now he's back at Warner Brothers, and he's working with David Zaslav. It seems like temporarily for a couple of years, but he's known as somebody who's one of the most successful Hollywood executives of all time. He helped Warner Brothers during go to have all kinds of success with the Harry Potter franchise. He was there overseeing the Dark Knight trilogy, and now this same person is back, not as like the president and chief operating officer. He's not that anymore like he was back then, but he is back, and he's going to have at least some significant say in what goes on next, whether it's DC Studios or whether they reboot the DCU entirely or whatever they do. I think that's a big acquisition and a big step in the right direction. So I think, to kind of come full circle here, if you're saying everything since 2013 has gone horribly wrong, maybe, to correct that course, you bring the person back who gave you your biggest successes, which included, like I said, the Dark Knight trilogy.
Makes sense. They were talking about doing something similar at Nickelodeon with the guy who were there during the 90s trying to, like, hey, what was the 90-ness of Nick? And I don't know. They ended up just bringing back Rugrats and SpongeBob. But you know, we'll see. Maybe they'll learn, maybe they'll do it right. But let's hope that this curse ends, and that they are able to get themselves... I didn't really... this is me stumbling over my words late in the day. So, in the meantime, be our friend. Find us on all the stuff. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. I'm counting in the wrong order. And, yeah, thank you for watching. Be part of our movie fan community. Talk to us about your theories and what you think might be next for DC. We'll engage with you. You could be the comment of the week. We'll see you. In the meantime, a voice actor reacts to the League of Super Pets and the voice acting within said film. Let's see how that goes.
And now, a voice actor reacts to the DC League of Super Pets. There I am. It's Andrew Frankel. Hi.
Today I went to go see the DC League of Super Pets starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Crypto the Super Dog. Crypto the Super Dog! I'll be honest, I laughed a lot. It was a funny movie. A lot of good jokes, and the performances, for the most part, pretty darn good. This was one of those movies that was like star-studded voice cast. Not that you would recognize most of them. I didn't realize Mark Maron was Lex Luthor until it ended and I was watching the credits, studying them very, very closely because I do that. And it's overall really fun movie. This movie had a sense of humor about itself. It was a lot more fun than anything Pixar I've seen this year. It was, you know, on par with the Illumination stuff, the Minions.
Yes, the good sound cut out here. I promise I am an audio professional. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Kevin, right, we gotta do this right now? That's fine. That'd be fine. Thank you. Okay. I think Kevin Hart did a pretty good job.
As a puppy, I was taken from my family.
Comedians tend to do a really, really good job. Anybody could have played Crypto the Super Dog. Crypto the Super Dog! Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson happened to. I think because he produced the movie and because he's got a lot of stuff going on with DC. And the fact is, like, when you're a leading man character in one of these things, you kind of have to phone in a straight leading man performance. You sometimes have to be both the dog speaking as English.
Wake up, buddy. It is walk o'clock.
And you also have to be able to... and all that kind of stuff. But I don't believe he did. I think they might have gotten either somebody to do the dog sounds or a dog. That happens sometimes too.
What is new with you, fellow normal dog?
Anybody could be this character if they just read the lines.
Where the heck am I?
Natasha Lyonne plays this turtle who's like old and has bad vision, and it's got her crusty voice sort of thing because she's got that her characteristic Natasha Lyonne voice. A funny character, but she gets super speed and then eventually runs way too far. She goes, "Where the f*** am I?" But they bleep it out because it's a kid's movie, and this was a really funny use of the bleep in a theatrical release that they didn't have to do. It's so jarring because nothing gets censored these days. It's a funny line, you're not expecting it in a kid's movie, but also you don't expect the bleep, and I think the laugh comes from the bleep. This was Ruth Lambert casting, and she does the casting for Rick and Morty. And she has a real good ear for this kind of stuff, where you cast an innocent kid saying really ridiculous, terrible things.
I am hungry, and all I could do to pass the time is hump. I will hump this rock.
She did the same thing with this kitten in here, who gets superpowers and becomes evil and is terrorizing the group. It's a good source of comedy, some natural contrast between this innocent, very cute kitty and some horrible things.
Most valuable voice.
Honestly, I think Vanessa Bayer did a good job here.
What's going on?
She owned this part. She was the super pig, Wonder Pig. She didn't really decide on a name for a while.
The mighty oink. I didn't see anything.
But I liked her. She was earnest, and she really committed to being that character. I bought it. That's important. This is going to be a segment of Voice Actor Reacts called
Could You Even Tell It Was Them?
Let's Go Down the List.
Dwayne Johnson,
Yeah, you could tell it was him. Did it need to be Dwayne Johnson? No.
Kevin Hart,
Dead right now,
It
right?
felt like Kevin Hart. It was decent voice acting. It was a lot. He was funny. He committed. He did some sad acting, and I bought it. I bought Kevin Hart's character a lot.
Kate McKinnon,
I wasn't sure it was her. I knew it was somebody funny. It was a voice that I recognized. She is the villain of this. She's the hairless hamster. She played, and she did well. Guinea pig. Did I say hamster?
Yeah.
Oh no.
John Krasinski,
John Krasinski plays Superman in this, and I wouldn't have been able to know that unless I stayed for the credits and I was like, oh, John Krasinski was in Superman.
Vanessa Bayer,
I could tell it was her as soon as I heard that she does this thing where she doesn't quite get things, and it's a nuanced performance, and she mastered it. I like her.
Natasha Lyonne,
Natasha Lyonne. As soon as I heard that crusty turtle, I was like, that's probably Natasha Lyonne. She was funny.
Diego Luna,
Diego Luna was a fidgety squirrel. I don't know. You know, it was like a character that yeah, sure. I wasn't like, wow! Wow! I was just like, yeah.
Mark Maron,
It isn't the Justice League.
Mark Maron played Lex Luthor. Why? I like Mark Maron. It just, again, anybody, it wasn't a particularly evil, or particularly casual, or particularly funny.
Keanu Reeves,
As a child, my family was taken from me.
It was him doing a Batman voice. I knew it was him going in because I'd seen the press for it, but it was like, he had fun. And like I said before, I would watch more Keanu Reeves' silly Batman, or Batman taking himself seriously but it being silly. That's a DC. Are you listening? That would be a home run in my book.
Ben Schwartz, and Thomas Middleditch.
They've always been improv partners since UCB days. They're hilarious people. There's a difference between the performance and then the improviser, because a voice actor is always going to be in character trying to, make this believable. An improviser is going to say, hey, this is a moment happening. How do we pack as much comedy into this as possible? These guys are going to punch up everything just by being in the booth. And even when it's something as mundane as and I'm Keith, it's so real. They have sort of these nondescript voices generally, so they just sort of sound like guys. But the comedy was there, and if you can sense somebody's comedy familiar and know that and that rings like something Middleditch would do or Schwartz would do, this had that.
Olivia Wilde,
Olivia Wilde was in it?
She was Lois Lane.
What? Oh my gosh. Olivia Wilde was, I was like, who's Lois Lane? I was watching the whole thing. I didn't even notice that Olivia Wilde was in that movie.
Jermaine Clement,
Jermaine Clement was Aquaman?
Yeah. I'm shocked.
Okay, I'm actually confused at this point. I wouldn't have known. Unless I went onto IMDb at this point. Who played Crypto's dad? Because that was really funny.
Keith David,
Keith David as Crypto's dad in Holograms, where he's going through all of the advice that he would have given his. The dog in the mirror is you. That got me to laugh.
Yvette Nicole Brown, Maya Erskine, Lena Headey, Alfred Molina.
Oh gosh. Okay, I officially don't remember anybody else being in this movie. Yeah, this is diminishing returns. Too many celebrities. I wouldn't have been able to tell you half of these people were even in the movie. Wouldn't have known.
Sam Levine,
Interesting. Sam Levine, if you played that robot, you're my hero. That's the line that's sticking with me. Dolores. I love that. Okay, I think we've had it. I think that's it. I've reacted.
Crypto, the super dog, Crypto, it's super dog time.
Thanks for watching.
Hey, have you heard about that Black Panther sequel? There's a little bit of an issue there, is that Black Panther, the actor, is not alive. And, where do you go from here? The trailer for Wakanda Forever came out. It dropped at Comic-Con. We all watched it. And there's a little bit of a, as you've mentioned here, a little bit of a movement to
recast T'Challa. Before we get into that discussion, what thoughts on the trailer? What did you guys think?
Dan?
Oh, okay. I was gonna say ladies first. So, because you saw it more recently, Catriona, I'll let you lead off with that.
Okay, well, yes, I just saw it very recently. So it's okay, so I definitely felt a bit of emotion because I was really sad when Chadwick Boseman died. I don't really know what else to say beyond that. I mean, it was just nice to see the elements of that. I don't know. I have nothing. Andrew, just
let me
take over.
I will tell you, boy, I watched that teaser and I'm teased, man. Honestly, beautiful shots. It looks gorgeous. Every single one of those shots, I'm like, this is a high production value movie. And if that's enough to get you in the seat, it probably will be for me. I'm probably going to go see it. I don't know what you do with the story without the actor. We'll see. And I didn't get a ton of clues about what's actually happening in the movie. But, you know, they made it. It's going to happen. We're going to see it. I don't know. I'm a little apprehensive. For me, because the whole MCU is about continuity, I think it would be a bad move to recast. I think probably better to just finish out the story and let it be hinted at in other stories, because you can keep him alive, like we said, in the suit where like we don't see his face. That could be anybody. And voice actors constantly get the job to sound like the actor who used to play him. Like, very easy to keep the original Black Panther alive, even if Chadwick Boseman isn't.
Well, but then you run into the issue in the movie. He's also the first movie he becomes King T'Challa. He becomes the king of Wakanda. So how do you deal with that part side of the character?
You could also deep fake him like you did with Luke Skywalker, couldn't you? It's not.
I mean, I guess you could. The comparison would be Paul Walker from Fast and Furious movies. Like they had to finish Furious 7 without him. So they brought in his brothers, and they were able to kind of get some footage from the previous movies and kind of stitch it together. And even in that movie franchise, they sort of like ended that movie with like Paul Walker's character Brian is sort of just off and doing his own thing now, but he's not part of the movies. Like he's not part of their adventures with the rest of the team. I'm gonna refrain from using the word because I don't want to have to divert. Anyway, we have this running gag.
That's fine.
I digress. What I was gonna say is I love the trailer. I think the trailer looks fantastic. As you guys said, it looks beautiful. Ryan Coogler is a fantastic filmmaker. Like you could pause almost every frame of this trailer and just frame
art.
Like take it, put it up on your wall. It looks fantastic. They introduced Namor, the Submariner, who is actually, fun fact, the very first superhero ever to appear in a Marvel comic. He appeared in Marvel Comics #1 back in 1939, and they're adapting him to the screen for the first time ever now, at least
That's
in the
neat.
MCU.
Yeah,
So he's like in a manner of speaking Marvel's Aquaman, although he's a few years older than Aquaman. The running joke usually is, wait, Marvel had Aquaman on the table as a name, and they went with Namor? But whatever. The point is, in this movie, it looks like they're going to adapt a storyline where the Atlanteans, or apparently he's not from Atlantis in the MCU. Namor is, he's the king of another empire, and they're leaning more into the Aztec heritage. So instead of being Atlantean, he's going to be more of an Aztec king. But his empire is going to war with Wakanda. That's kind of so hopefully that puts in context a lot of like what's happening in the trailer, the action.
That does.
And they do show the shots of the funeral, which the implication is that they're showing the funeral of T'Challa. So that's how they address Chadwick Boseman's character.
Well, I think then they've sort of answered the question of whether or not they'll recast him, haven't they?
Well, they announced, so Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler announced that a few years ago when Chadwick Boseman passed away, a short while after, they said we're not going to recast him. You know, we can't imagine anybody else playing T'Challa, or Chadwick Boseman
Right.
is our T'Challa, and so they were like, we're gonna move on, and so that's why in the movie it looks like the character
I
of
think
T'Challa
that's
has also passed away. I don't know if
that's
they're
the
gonna
most
show or
that's the most
how,
tasteful way
or
to
if
do
it's
this,
off
I
screen,
think.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Because if you fall into the trap of deep faking him or resurrecting him with movie magic, so it's still a pretty fresh wound in the
Yeah.
collective consciousness. And I think to show some respect, you pay a tribute in the movie, and you keep the continuity.
Yeah, but the movement, so right now, I mean, what triggered us doing this whole segment was there's this movement on social media, this hashtag recast T'Challa, that actually has been around for a few years, right from when they first made the announcement that they weren't going to recast T'Challa. And now that the new trailer has come out, the first teaser trailer for this movie, which, you know, it's been shot, the movie was in the can a long time ago. They're now at this point basically going to release it in a few months' time. But because the new trailer came out, it's in the headlines, this movement has picked up steam again. And it seems like a vocal minority that's still trying to like push the idea of they should continue the character of T'Challa. He's too important, and there's way too many comic book stories that they could adapt, and he's too important to the overall MCU that they should not just kill the character off. They should have somebody else step into the character to honor the memory of Chadwick Boseman. Versus,
Well, then again,
moving
what
on.
I would say is, you know, if you need him in a battle, put someone else in the suit, but it's a bad move. It's a bad move.
I mean, I can sort of understand both sides of the argument, right? I mean, like, okay, so I'll ask you, Catriona, like, if you were in Kevin Feige's shoes, and you had two options, essentially, you could do what, like, they do with the James Bond character, what they've done with Batman over the years, like, where they would just recast, or, like, in the best comparison to make would be in the MCU, when they recast Rhodey in Iron Man 2. So he was played by...
Right, I was thinking about that.
So I'm forgetting the actor's name. He was played by a different actor in the first Iron Man movie, and then Don Cheadle comes and takes over in Iron Man 2.
Right.
And they sort of reference it in the movie itself. He's like, all right, I'm here. Let's move on. Like, they just like kind of played it off that way. They could have done maybe not the same thing, but something similar. Obviously, in this case, the previous actor did not pass away who played War Machine.
Right.
But you either can do that, or you can do what they decided to do, which is we're just gonna write off the character of T'Challa in the movies. He died in the world of the MCU, much like Chadwick Boseman passed away in real life. Tragic situation, but we then weave the element of like grief and because people in the real world are grieving too, the loss of a great actor, somebody who represents a lot to a lot of people, and now they're weaving that into the story of the film, and the world of Wakanda is grieving too.
Right.
So do you go that route, or would you have rather recast T'Challa, like the movement on social media right now wants them to do?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because it's like you want to be respectful to Chadwick Boseman, and you want to be respectful to the fact that you don't just want to like just to kind of pretend that you could even replace him at all. But then there's the other side of it too, where it's like you had Black Panther finally for so many people who looked up to this character, and then he just by chance the actor dies, and then it's like all those people who he was his favorite character, he was their favorite character and everything, and specifically for diversity and everything, it was like finally we had like an awesome Black character, and then what do? You just move on, and then it's like, well, never mind, we don't actually have that anymore. Sorry guys, sorry everyone who loved this character. It's just, I don't know, it's a really weird position to be in, because it's like, which version is more disrespectful,
I mean, would you say it's a no-win situation? It's sort of it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, because it definitely feels like that's sort of like the position Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler were put in, because not to mention the fact that you work with this person for months, years, even. Like, he was in several Marvel movies before he passed away, so somebody who as a close friend, and as a colleague that you're grieving the death of, and then on top of that you have to make a decision like this. It's on its own, it's a hard decision to make.
Can I
add all that
propose a
emotion to it.
solution?
Yeah.
This is the brand that has really rammed the idea of a multiverse down our throats. Perhaps the MCU is one version of this multiverse where Black Panther has actually died. Maybe we don't have to go by the actual canon anymore, because they've skipped plenty of things and glossed things and combined characters into, or just erased others because others would be more popular. Like, this wouldn't be the first inconsistency with the official Marvel canon.
That's a fair point. I mean, they could totally do that, right? Like, they could just say the 616 Earth Black Panther passed away, played by Chadwick Boseman, but all of a sudden they can bring in somebody who's from some other, version of the multiverse, like another
that would be
universe.
such a cheap move, and God, if they do that, I'm gonna be upset.
So
I think that would be the most respectful solution, though. What were you gonna say, Dan?
No, I think it could work. I mean, I think, again, they have to do it in a tasteful manner.
Yeah.
If they were to do that. But let me ask you this question. So if you watch that Wakanda Forever trailer, there's a shot at the end of the trailer that very specifically shows you a profile of a Black Panther. Right? We don't know who's in the suit, but and that's really the question, is
Isn't it
who's
his
in the
sister?
suit?
I swear it was his sister, right? I thought she was going to take over.
So let me ask you guys.
It's unclear what we're looking at here.
Does this because the people are speculating, I don't know, does that look like do those look like a man's hips, or is that because you're trying to figure out, like, what is that, a man or a woman? Because there's a few candidates. You could be M'Baku, could be that who was in the first movie, played by is it Vincent Duke, I think his name. He was in Us from Jordan Peele. People are thinking it could be Shuri, who's sister of T'Challa, played by Letitia Wright. Or it could be Michael B. Jordan coming back as Killmonger. And then if you watch the first Black Panther movie, Michael B. Jordan's Black Panther suit, because he's temporarily, becomes the king of Wakanda in that movie, his suit has those gold accents, which is what this character does here. So, which is it?
It's too ambiguous at this point.
Which is on purpose, of course. But
yeah,
if you had to guess, which, I mean, everything that we've just talked about, and now you're thinking, where do you take? Because you can say the T'Challa character is done, and like, he passed away in the movie too, but the character of Black Panther, has to continue. Somebody has to take on the suit. So who would that be?
If we're gonna follow this idea that, Black Panther was a lot of people's hero, maybe this is somebody young within the Wakanda tribe that's paying tribute to him and living life as T'Challa, as Black Panther, because he looked up to him. Maybe that's where we get that sort of aspirational relationship with characters in the movie.
Nobody has told me that before, but I really like that idea.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do.
I just have a feeling they're gonna go kind of a feminist route. I can say that.
They could. They could. They absolutely.
I think they're gonna push
I
that
wouldn't
really
mind that.
hard.
I mean, so
let's
Lupita
see.
Nyong'o plays Nakia, who was the love interest of Black Panther T'Challa in the first movie. I think she'd be a fantastic Black Panther. In fact, at one point in the movie, when they believed T'Challa to be dead in that film, his mother almost implores Nakia's character to take on the mantle, and then they find out that T'Challa is alive. But
yeah,
I wouldn't
nothing
mind
in the rule book that says it's Black Manther.
What?
Bad pun.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't get that reference, but I have no idea what you just referenced.
Wouldn't have to be a man.
Okay. I see what you're saying. All right. Totally went over my head. But,
sorry, it's not a good joke.
I mean, okay, so to kind of wrap up our conversation here, the question was this: should Marvel recast T'Challa? I mean, do you guys think there's a definitive response?
I'm always
Well-
going to be on the side of no. I don't think
But
they should.
so wait, he said, or his brother said that he would have wanted them to do it. I mean, like,
I think so. I think his
gave the
brother
okay.
was asked in an interview, and he said Chadwick would have wanted them to recast the character and keep going with T'Challa, somebody else in the role. I don't know if we ever heard from Chadwick Boseman about something like that, because he largely, his fight with cancer, he kept that pretty private. I mean, that was one of the shocking things when he passed away. People were like, what? He had cancer? And it was like something he had been struggling with for years. So I don't think he was making any public statements about like, who would I want to continue in the role if and when I pass away. But it is interesting. His brother said, they should have recast him, which I guess that's in favor of that one direction, whereas the other direction is what they're going with. I personally think it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I love the trailer for this movie, the teaser trailer. I'm excited to see where they take it next. If they do it tastefully, I think they could have gone in either direction. So I'll trust Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler, who are both fantastic at their jobs, and hope that they've made the right decision. Because I mean, it's not like I can all of a sudden implore them or convince them to do otherwise, right? So you just hope that they're doing the best that they can. And the trailer is I think it's a harbinger for good things to come, because like you guys agreed, it looks fantastic. This movie looks great.
Absolutely. Well, we have a few months to look forward to this. Wakanda Forever releases November 11th. That's a few months away, but we'll be back to talk about it. We'll probably all go see it, and we'll be surprised. We'll follow up with this segment later. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Be our friend. Hit the subscribe button. It's around here somewhere. There, you found it. Click on it and find us. We're on Instagram and Spotify and Twitter and Twitch and all the places. Be our friend. We're friendly people. And now, let's take a look at what happened this week on For All Mankind. Dan, you got some stuff to say to me about that? We are back this week, episode 8 out of 10 for All Mankind, the Apple TV series, which takes us into an alternate universe of science fiction and gives us sort of a parallel reality to our own in terms of the space race, space travel through the 90s, where the Russians, the Soviets as it were, they've advanced and won the space race. We have competing private and national space companies, I guess, or endeavors, programs going to the moon. Now they're on Mars. We have basically a lot of drama happening with characters that we've come to care about, things boiling to a head with substance abuse, with romance, with intrigue, politics. It's all very exciting, very intense. First of all, where are we right now?
So we're in episode 8, which in a 10-episode season, we're basically heading to, we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. About half of the cast of the show is part of the mission on Mars, whether they're part of NASA, Helios, the private company, or the Soviet Union's crews. They're all on Mars, the first human expedition to Mars. And at the end of the last episode, there was a big Mars quake, and it caused a big landslide, and it buried.
Do they call it a Mars quake?
Yeah, that's a real term. Because I mean, if you think about it, they call it an earthquake, right? So
okay, I'm not gonna nitpick
it's one of those things where if you're not used to it, it seems weird. But I'm sure over time, if you were living in a era when people were living on Mars, it would be more normal. But anyway, so a bunch of characters, we don't know their fate, what ended up happening to them, because they were right in the path of the landslide. And then obviously the people on Earth, are all worried about like what the hell just went wrong. So this is where we start the episode, and then over the course of the episode, we have the astronauts who didn't get buried underground, or they're injured or whatever. The NASA astronauts, they're helping to dig out the Helios and the Soviet astronauts, who were the ones who mostly were affected by this. And that's what the most of the episode is covering. And then on Earth's side, a lot of the people, all these different teams, the NASA team, the Helios team, the Soviet teams are coming together in Apollo 13 fashion to try to use their ingenuity to get solutions to these people on Mars with what tools they have available to dig them out, because they weren't equipped to dig people out of a landslide. They went, so they have hand tools for digging, so they have to think creatively to dig out a rover that's essentially under over a dozen meters of rock and debris, which that's not, you can't just use a shovel and expect
Right.
to get, you know, they have
Is
limited
the communication
oxygen,
happening through
so.
through space across planets, or is this just people on Mars trying to basically rescue people from an underground?
So it's
collapse?
similar to like if you watch the Apollo 13 movie, or if you remember, you know, the events of Apollo 13 in real life. You have people on Mars, the astronauts, the cosmonauts, and like the private astronauts. Those are the people on Mars, and they're trying to figure this out. There's an 8-minute communication delay with the people on Earth, and those
That's
people
pretty
are
good
trying to
for
like come up
space.
with solutions. So there's drama just like right in the fact that you can't have real-time communication. You're
Yeah.
sort of always a little bit behind what's actually going
Yeah.
on the ground, and so therefore the value of the information you do provide when you do communicate with them is more important, because you can't just waste time telling them stuff or asking questions you don't need to ask. You need to
Yeah.
get to work and tell them what they need to know to like help rescue these people, which includes Danny Stevens and Ed Baldwin, these two people who have been, you know, at butting heads for like this entire season, and they are the ones
So-
buried underground in this rover, and we get some of the best some of the best scenes in this entire season so far, and with them in the rover. In fact, I think it harkens back to, I remember watching shows like Star Trek Enterprise back in the early 2000s, and you had those episodes in the middle of the season where basically they would have run out a lot of their budget using a lot of the bigger episodes where they had a lot of VFX, and then they would have to just like stick people in like a shuttlecraft and be like, we got no money, so act the heck out of this, and that's
Yeah.
what we gotta do. And even though Apple does not have any problem like this, that's not what this show is about. But they put these characters in a room and said, all right, these two characters who have been at odds now have to kind of be dying of hypoxia because their
Yeah.
oxygen's running out.
So is it
And-
kind of like a bottle episode for them?
In a way, yes. On those characters, yes. There's a lot of other stuff happening around
There's a
them,
B-plot.
obviously. There's like, because there's a combination of like a bottle episode and then Apollo 13, and there's all kinds of, I mean, and then there's a few people who don't make it out of this episode alive. So there's the consequences of, you know, of that. And by the end of the episode, we find out that Kelly is pregnant with a child of a now dead Soviet astronaut that she was having an affair with. I mean, neither of them were married, so I don't know if you call it an affair, but the
It's still an
two
affair.
surviving Soviet crew members know that she's
Mm-hmm.
pregnant. I don't think Kelly knows she's pregnant, but now they're whispering to each other in the last scene of the episode. Let me I guess I already gave up too much, but let me put up a spoiler warning just in case. But can you imagine the dilemma? So, you know, now they're like, so she's pregnant. Who do we tell? Who do we not tell? And the commander tells his crewmate that we're gonna have to tell, you know, these people, because it affects the entire crew. We have a crew, you know, because eventually she's gonna realize she's pregnant, and
Right.
and then
So-
once they get to Earth, now you have an NASA astronaut who has the baby of a former Soviet, or of a dead Soviet cosmonaut, and the Cold War is still sort of raging. Like, is this like I don't know where they're heading with this. Is this a custody battle? What is this? I don't know what this becomes. Like, it's just so
well,
fascinating.
maybe, you know, I don't know. Just listening to it, maybe it's some idea or some message about coexisting, because you know you'd have DNA coexisting in, you know, a baby. This is interesting. Where does this leave us for the last two episodes? Have they presented like a penultimate episode or like a pre-series finale? Like, do we have hints about where this is going, or do you think everything's on the table still? Do you know where this could be leading?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hints. The good thing about this show is it feels like a world you can live in. It feels very real. There's a lot of different things happening. It's not like, I mean, there is the overarching storyline, but every character has going someplace that you're excited to see them go. You've got the President Wilson and her husband, who, you know, both they're secretly both gay, but openly, you know, they're a married couple with a child. And obviously, being the president in the 1990s, you know, that's a problem that seems like it's going to come to a head. I don't know if that means they're going to make it public that yes, indeed, both her and her husband, or the first gentleman and the president, are both gay, and like, you know, they've just been pretending to be a married couple. They are a married couple officially, but that's going to come out because in this episode, Ellen went and reconnected with the person she loved and who left her so that she could pursue a political career without telling her that. So there's like a lot going on that end. Now I think the next episode they're gonna start to kind of head back to Earth. So once they get back to Earth, obviously, you know, the fallout of everything that has happened on Mars, that's gonna happen. The show has this tendency to jump a decade between each season. So wherever they leave off the story by the end of season 3, which is where we are now, it's going to be pretty definitive. They may not resolve every story thread, but I'm pretty sure when we next pick up, it'll be the turn of the century and we'll be in the 2000s. So I'm excited to see where a lot of these characters go now.
It'll be really interesting. I mean, I'm already excited about just hearing what parallels there are to the last 20 years, what stays consistent, and what is totally different. Because, you know, these have been crazy decades for us here in reality. To see how that changes, or how they comment on the last 20 years, and how that changes in this alternate universe is going to be really interesting. If you've been keeping up with us and been watching this, comment, tell us what you're excited about for these last 2 episodes. What theories do you have about the end? Comment, maybe you're going to be the commenter of the week. Maybe we'll read it. Maybe you'll be on the show. Wouldn't that be exciting? In the meantime, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, comment, be part of the conversation. This isn't just us talking. This is your opportunity to weigh in and tell us what you think. Be part of our movie fan community. And now, what do you say? What do you say we wrap this puppy up? Bullet Train! This is gonna be the big movie of the summer, in my opinion. I've seen the trailer for this every time I've gone to the movies this summer. It's kind of a big deal. We got Brad Pitt stepping back out, and he's kind of going for something that's action. There's a lot of fight sequences in this, but he's really leaning into the comedy here. And some of my favorite times I've enjoyed Brad Pitt is when he's leaned into the comedy. When he was in Inglourious Bastards doing his I can't really speak Italian bit. That's classic to me. And I loved him in Burn After Reading.
Is that how you say it? Gorlami.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Yeah, I love that character.
Yeah, I like Brad Pitt, and it's good to see him leaning into something like this. First impressions from the trailer, because I know you've seen it a lot too. What do you guys think?
Interesting.
I love the trailers look fantastic. The first trailer came out, and I did not know what this thing was, and then I read up on it. Like, the first trailer was so good that I was like, I wonder what is this movie about? And I found out it's based on a novel I think it's a Japanese novel, and so I'm sure you've seen like some of the posters for this. Like, they have the words Bullet Train written in English and Japanese. I think the movie mostly takes place in Tokyo or like parts of Japan, although the entire cast is obviously not Japanese. I mean, you know, Brad Pitt.
Well, it's funny. The first time I saw the trailer, I was watching it and I was like, look at all, it's like heavily stylized. It almost looks like a video game. I was convinced that I was watching a live adaptation of like Street Fighter, because the costumes were so on par with that, and like the hair and the makeup and like everything is so slick, and it's lit very similarly to like a Street Fighter game.
It looked like
ready
John Wick
to
me.
That. John Wick, interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, there seems to be. It looks like it'll ring similarly to like Everything Everywhere All at Once in terms of the tone. But it's neat because it's going to be lighthearted comedic action that isn't necessarily superhero stuff. It almost looks like Rush Hour even.
Oh my God, I can't believe I did not make that comparison, but now that's going to be stuck in my head, and that actually ups my excitement even more, because I know they're working on a 4th Rush Hour movie. I don't know if ever. Yeah, no, it's they are. I don't know if it's ever going to come out, honestly, because I don't know how far along they are.
Rush Hour 3 was fantastic. What's wrong with you?
Wait, I don't even remember.
Come on.
When did that one come out? Oh, I saw 1 and 2. I fell
Rush
off.
Hour 3 might be the best.
When was that one? What year?
Fine,
I'll do my own research.
A few years after Rush Hour 2.
I watched it a lot. Rush Hour.
Wasn't Rush Hour 3 the one where they go to Paris? Isn't that the one?
I think so.
It's
were
the
all
one where he
good.
gets into the cab with the French cab driver, and then he makes him recite the Pledge of Allegiance, or like no, the American national anthem.
It's been a while.
I love that movie.
I
Yeah.
also recently
I
watched
see.
The Fifth Element, and I
Oh,
just
yeah,
miss
that's a good one.
I just miss Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
And man, what I would give. You know what? I miss Jackie Chan too. Get both of those guys back out here. I would love to see more Rush Hour.
In Rush Hour 4, I mean, I know we're totally off topic at this point, but
I
Rush
know.
Hour 4 needs to feel like Bad Boys for Life, because clearly they're gonna look way older than they did in the last movie. So, I mean, I would love
don't-
to see them back.
Yeah, I
for
wouldn't
this.
even care. Like if you're able to pull it off, even with the flimsiest premise, I'm there. I'm absolutely there for
Yeah.
Rush Hour 3.
I mean,
or
and
4.
Bullet Train.
Apparently, I won't be. I don't know.
Get there.
Well, go watch the third one. It's
Okay,
great.
okay. I have some homework.
I will say that I think Chris Tucker packed on a few extra pounds by the time we got to Rush Hour 3. You could tell the difference. He did
I
not
don't care.
quite. But no, I'm just saying I noticed that like now it doesn't stand out to me. But that was the first thing that I noticed. I'm like, wait, he looks different. I mean, Jackie
Yeah.
Chan did not look any different, but like he looked different. Whatever. The
You know
movie
what?
isn't any less fun. Though.
It's been at least 12 years. I'm not expecting them to look the same. I would just be nice. As long as
I'm
we're
just saying it
stuck
looked
in
weird then
nostalgia.
because those movies were evenly
Yeah.
spaced out. So I'm like, what
But
happened?
as long
And-
as we're revisiting things that we loved from the 90s and early 2000s, I think we could all use some more Rush Hour. But let's get back to Bullet Train for a little bit.
I think this movie has the sensibility, like you said, Rush Hour. I'm thinking it also feels like it's gonna have like that Ocean's movies kind of a sensibility to
Yeah.
it. If you watch something like Aaron Taylor Johnson's in this, you have I think what's her name? Is it Billie Piper? She has like a new Hulu movie out too. Is that her
Okay.
name? That might not be
I don't
her
know.
name.
That
Whatever.
sounds like a
There's
pop star from the 90s.
This movie has an ensemble cast. I mean, Brad Pitt is the focus of the film, but there's a
Yes.
lot of other good actors in this. And I think it's one of those movies where they're just people are like big time actors just pop in, do a little bit of fighting, and then just get disposed of, and then now you move on to the next fight. It
And
feels
you know
like
what?
that kind of movie.
That's if you're gonna do like Marvel cameo type stuff, that's the way to do it. Bring them in, bring them out. You're out. And fine, they're there for the fun. Unless this turns into Bullet Train 7, Bullet Train 8, then I'm off the Bullet Train.
I don't know how many novels there are.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a
Let's
whole
see how
series
this first
of
one
them.
goes.
So I don't know.
Well, I'm excited about it.
No, I'm like, you already
Yeah.
know I'm excited about it. I don't know.
I know
Catriona seems like she was
Catriona-
gonna be watching Rush Hour 3 instead. So I don't
Yeah.
know if she's excited about it.
to prep for this one, yes. Yep. Very excited.
But are you gonna watch this too, or are you just gonna watch Rush Hour 3?
Oh no, I'll watch this. For sure. Yeah, I just gotta
Thanks.
I just gotta, catch up on
Just
I'll get hyped. I'll get hyped.
Okay. Well, we hope you also get hyped out there in the world outside of this screen. Ding, ding, ding. Hello, let us out. Anyway, follow us, be our friend. Join us on all the social media. We're on all the social media. And we'll see you next week on Oh So Curious. Goodbye.
Bye.